have a special intro song for you.
Oh my god, okay.
Welcome to Ice Cream, your weekly scoop. It's Here Comes the Bride. Do you get it? Because
I do hear it. I heard it. It took me a second, but it was right before you stopped. I got it. Okay, why are you singing that song,
Because
Gina?
Katherine's getting married tomorrow.
Yay! So, if you guys are listening to us, which you are because you can hear me saying this, if everything goes according to plan, I will be married by the time this comes out.
Woohoo! Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers. My little girl. So let me explain what's going on here. So Ice Cream, weekly scoop of the most chilling histories, mysteries, true crime, etc. I'm Gina.
Oh, I'm Kathryn. And this is Cinnamon.
That's Cinnamon the cat. Every month we choose a new topic, new ice cream flavor to go along with it, except for today, because we're drinking today. Because it's the day before Catherine's wedding, and so it's kind of like a little bachelorette, like a little spooky, podcasty bachelorette. But yeah, this month we're talking about werewolves. We are supposed to be eating Blue Moon ice cream, but maybe check out the last episode for that, or the next episode for that, because we're not doing that today.
I was going to say, because I wasn't technically eating it last episode either, but
maybe try again next week.
Give me next week. I'll get there.
So grab a spoon or a glass of something tasty, and let's dig in.
Yay. Sip. I need to let mine get watered down. It was just very sweet and tart. Do you need to get a new glass of something?
I don't know if I do. So the second sip was not as bad as the first one.
Okay, I was gonna say, I feel like that's a thing with wine. Like any wine, especially if it's not immediately fresh. Mm-hmm. But that happened to me last time I poured myself a glass of wine. I was like, ugh. And then the second one, I was like, oh. Something with the tannins. Something tannins.
Yes.
Did you let it breathe?
Yes. I let it breathe and grow wings.
Give it a sniff. Top note, low note.
It looks great.
It does look great.
So for context, you look great. Stop it. For context, I'm drinking a bottle of wine that has maybe been open for longer than the recommended.
Don't tell them how long.
I'm not going to tell them how long. I would never tell anyone except for you. But it's been open for longer than the strictly recommended amount of time. But it's fine.
And should I tell everyone why I'm drinking?
Please do.
I love this story. So they may be, I don't know. Some of them might listen. So my mother's friend, she's doing a craft in May. She needs to make decor. So she's making a centerpiece. So I have 3 bottles of that pre-mixed cosmopolitan stuff. And me and a bunch of boomer babes need to suck down a couple bottles each of these within the next month, which sounds like enough time if you're not old and tired like I am. So I'm going to do my best. I have to water it down because it's so tart that it's going to take me a little longer to get through it. I have a heart-shaped ice cube in it today. I don't know if you can see it.
I can't see, but that's so cute because I know.
I was hoping you
pretty
could
pink
see
cocktail
it better,
too.
But yeah, there's.
I love those glasses.
Anyway, these were my mom's.
Oh, I love your mom.
Yeah, I love my mom too. And my dad and my brother. I love my family.
Everybody.
Oh my god,
we are 3 sips in.
Oh my god, dude, I love you so much.
Oh my god.
I'm literally so scared we're not gonna get through this. Kathryn, I have to take it down.
I'm in the mood for a story. Spin me a tale. Immediately.
Okay. Let me take one more sip.
Me too.
See, now I can't start it because I have a whole spooky entrance and I'm like, cosmopolitan.
We can make the mood a little bit spookier if you want. We didn't do our breathing. Let's do a deep breath and ease into the spookiness.
Oh, we didn't do our breathing. Is that why we're weird? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we going to let our friends join? Do you guys want to breathe with us?
Yeah.
This
so
is our
I guess
pre-recording ritual.
We've never done this while we're in an episode before, but yeah, we always do deep breaths before we record anything. Scared. So if you guys want to join, we can do a little guided meditation. Just listen for the loud exhales.
I can't look
you.
Okay, don't look. Do this. Okay.
Okay.
I messed with my lighting.
I feel ready for something spooky now.
Maybe this is why I'm always short of breath when we record, because suddenly I'm like, oh, those were too deep. I need my thing.
I breathed too deep.
I breathed too deep. Okay. It all started on a stormy Halloween night when a teenager was driving down a dark country road. 17-year-old Doris Gibson, or Gibson, I think it's Gibson, I'm not sure. She was driving along Bray Road in Elkhorn, Wisconsin in 1991. Bray Road is a 17-mile two-lane road that goes straight through cornfields and the occasional patch of wooded area. But besides that, there's really not a lot going on down there. Like every now and then as you're driving along, you might see porch light from a farm, and that's about it. It's very desolate. There's nothing around there. So she was driving along on her way to a Halloween party when all of a sudden it felt like she ran over something. She would later state that it felt like her front tire lifted fully off the ground. So she didn't just hit it, whatever it was, but she ran over it with her front tire. So she didn't know what it was. Right thing to do was stop, figure out what the hell just happened. So she gets out of the car and circles around to the back to assess to see if there's any damage or anything. But she couldn't see anything because it was very dark out. Suddenly, something bolted. Is that right? Bolted? Something bolted out of the woods?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
She saw something bolt out of the woods. It was running directly at her. She couldn't see what it was at first, but later she would say that the speed at which it was running was like beyond her comprehension. She said it was definitely inhuman, and I thought it was kind of cute. She did say in one interview that like her uncle was a track star, so like she knew a fast human. She knew what a fast human looked like, and this was like beyond anything she had ever seen. She books it back to the car, gets in, and she barely makes it. And when she did, she felt whatever was running toward her jump on the trunk of her car. And once she saw it, she could see it, through her obviously back windshield. She said the only way she could describe the thing she saw was nothing other than a wolf-like beast with very thick brown scraggly fur and muscular arms and legs. So it was clearly an animal, but with a very human-like shape. She was very confused by she was seeing two different things. She knew for sure it was a wolf, but it had very muscular arms, legs, and chest, like a human body. She hits the gas, and the thing slides off her trunk because it was slippery from the rain, and she gets the hell out of Dodge. She stands by what she saw. Her story never ever wavered. Whenever anyone would ask her what happened, it stayed the same every single time. But she still couldn't believe what she saw. Like, she knew she saw something, but she couldn't believe that she saw something. It was like one of those disconnects.
Especially when you're alone and there's not like another person there to verify what you saw.
And it's dark and stormy. And when I say dark, it's like dark, like country, middle of nowhere, no city lights for miles type dark. So but there was the light from her car, like her car lights. So that can be very disorienting. Driving down a country road alone at night can be very disorienting, like you were saying. And it just she's positive it could not have been something else, but she's also not sure because of everything we just said. So she's feeling weird. She's feeling disoriented and not totally sure if she's going crazy or if she just missaw something or what just happened. She kind of just tucks it aside, goes to the party, has a lovely Halloween night. Later that night, she was driving home from the party, this time with a friend that she was bringing home, like taking home after the party. At a certain point, she's just driving along and her friend gasps, points out into the cornfield that they were passing and yells, "Look at that. What the hell is that thing?" And Doris recognizes the running stride through the cornfield and is like, that is exactly what I saw earlier tonight. She slams on the gas and is like, we got to get off this road. We got to get back home because what the hell is this thing? After dropping off her friend, she She heads home, pulls into the garage, and when she gets out, she notices in the light of the garage that there were what appeared to be giant claw marks on the trunk of her car. And these claw marks were presumably left by what would later become known as the Beast of Bray Road. Fast forward. Okay, this all happened on Halloween. Fast forward a couple of months. It was a particularly slow news week. It was in that weird, like, everyone's tired from Christmas, waiting for, New Year's. No one's really doing anything. Everyone's kind of quiet. It's like the holiday quiet time, Linda Godfrey was working at a small Walworth County newspaper. It was called The Week. And she had originally studied art and had gotten a job there to supplement the fact that she was trying to become a cartoonist, which I just love. I'm like, that is so not a thing that happens in 2025. She was just trying to be a newspaper cartoonist. How fun is that? What a lovely goal. I just love that so much. So small town newspapers, I can attest. I freelanced for one when I was in college, and it is this Linda Godfrey woman will even attest to this. It's very, I don't want to say easy, but it's very doable to work your way up in these little small town newspapers in 1990, 1991, because there's not a lot of competition. They were kind of desperate for writers and people who wanted to write local news for very little pay. So she's like, okay, I'm trying to make it as a newspaper cartoonist. I'll supplement that income as a freelancer for this newspaper. Eventually, she works her way onto staff. So at the time of this story, she had just recently become, like a full-time journalist at this paper. One day, like I said, it was a slow news week in December. One of the freelancers that the newspaper worked with on a regular basis gave Linda a call. And the freelancer said that she had heard from a bus driver at the school that the hottest topic at the time amongst the kids in towns was this alleged werewolf sighting on Halloween. Naturally, it's like, okay, Halloween werewolves, LOL, kids playing pranks, right? But she's like, okay, there's not a lot coming in on the wire. So Linda bites. She decides, fuck it, this could be entertaining until some actual news breaks. She reaches out to the bus driver that this freelancer had told her about, and the bus driver's name was Pat Lester, who said she had heard whisperings of this werewolf rumor, and the way the kids were talking about it, it seemed legit. Like, it didn't seem like a prank, it seemed like they all were talking about something real. Part of the reason Pat believed them is because in 1989, her daughter Lori had come home one night and confided in her that she had seen something strange. The descriptions that Pat had heard the high schoolers talking about on the bus were very similar to what her daughter had described just 2 years earlier. Rewind to 1989, Lori told her mom that she had also been driving down Bray Road around 1:30 in the morning. She said she noticed something kneeling on the side of the road, which was strange because it wasn't an animal-like position. It wasn't like you would see like a dog sitting or whatever. It looked like someone was kneeling. That was like the position that she could see in the shadows. So she's thinking, okay, maybe someone's hurt, maybe someone's lost. I should check this out. She pulls up, and upon further inspection, she sees it has pointy ears, dark brownish gray fur that was very scraggly, and long claws. But it also had, like I said, it had that human-like figure. Like, she could see it had elbows that it was bending, like it was kneeling down, like it looked like a human body, but it didn't look like a human, So she's confused. She's kind of feeling the same way that Doris was feeling, 2 years later, like, I know what I'm seeing, but this does not compute. Eventually, she kind of realizes that what she's looking at is this creature is eating roadkill, but it's not eating roadkill the way an animal normally would. It's holding it up to its mouth like you would like a hamburger or a sandwich or something. It's not like eating it off the ground like a wolf would. So she's like, what the fuck? Like, she freaks out, and same as Doris, she books it. She like gets the hell out of there. When she was talking to Linda, the journalist, she asked Lori if she thinks what she saw was a werewolf, and Lori said no. She said, quote, "I'd say it was a freak of nature, one of God's mistakes."
Ooh, it was just hungry.
I know.
Just wanted to eat some roadkill.
It's just a weird, like, hungry beast. I don't know. So word gets out that Linda is working on the story, and through the grapevine, people are starting to hear that a journalist is asking questions about this weird beast thing. Word gets around to a woman named Karen, who came forward and said that her daughter had had a similar experience as well. Not exactly the same. She was a little bit younger, but she saw something very similar. The daughter's name is Heather, and they lived in Spring Prairie, which is just one town over from Elkhorn. One day in 1990, she was out sledding near a little creek that was close to their house. I think that they had a lot of land, so I think a creek may have been going through their land. She told her mother that she saw what appeared to be a very large dog kind of sneaking around through the cornfields. And it was wintertime, so the corn wasn't high. It was like an open field that she could see, very clearly. When she was telling her mom about it, she said she was positive it was a dog. She was 100% certain it was a dog until it stood up and started walking toward her. And her mom was like, "What the hell do you mean it stood up? Was it like going after something? What was it doing?" And she was like, "This wasn't like when a dog stands up and it kind of like balances a little bit. It was like it was crawling and then it stood up and walked like a human would." So she said that the legs didn't look like canine legs. She said it looked like a man walking, but when it had been crawling around, it didn't look like a human walking. It looked very like natural. It was very fast. It was very like it could do both with equal effort, I guess, if you will. It wasn't like, oh, it's used to walking and now it's trying to crawl, or it's used to crawling and it's trying to walk. She said it looked very natural. Similar to the other stories, she said it looked very muscular, had very muscular legs, and just all around a human shape, but it was very clearly a dog. Like, she was positive of that until she wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, it was that same kind of feeling. Now, she was a little younger, so at the time, her mom was like, okay, she's probably just either playing pretend or doesn't really know what she saw, until this story started circulating the following year, and she was like, wait, that kind of sounds like what Heather described. So she's, telling all of this to Linda, and then it does end up in the article that Linda was writing. After this story with Karen, Linda was kind of like, okay, that's a lot of eyewitness accounts, and it's so easy to be like, oh, wow, someone's doing a story. I want to be part of that story. I'm going to say I saw this thing as well. So there's still a lot of skepticism, and she's like, okay, that's a lot of sightings, but you don't really know if they're telling the truth or not. So she decides to start asking more, I would say, like professional people, experts, if you will.
Werewolf experts?
Luckily, werewolf experts. Not quite, but yes, animal experts. So luckily, someone had recently reported to Lakeland Animal Shelter that there had been some bizarre looking tracks in the area. I think the reason it was reported to the animal shelter was because people said that they were like a dog-like looking track, but they weren't exactly the same as your standard dog or coyote or wolf tracks. They said they were like much bigger and the stride was a little stranger. So she spoke to the director of the shelter, and they did say that there had been wolf sightings in a couple of surrounding cities and towns within an hour of Elkhorn. And at this point, I do want to note that we do have wolves here in Wisconsin, but it is extremely rare for them to be this far south. So it's not impossible for a wolf to have been seen, and then people just aren't used to seeing wolves around here, so they're like, what is that beast? And like it just turns out to be a wolf. We also do have a lot of coyotes around here, so it's not impossible that this could have been just like a coyote or a wolf or whatever. But with that being said, out in the rural areas, people are like very familiar with coyotes, and they, there's a lot of like wilderness people around here. So we can assume that people would know if they were seeing a wolf. And it's worth noting, all of these people that have come forward so far have said it was a wolf, but not, like they acknowledged that it was, but they were also certain that it was a strange looking wolf. You know what I mean? So this person at the animal shelter did confirm that the tracks that had been reported were very strange. They didn't seem like they followed the same stride as a canine that was walking on its four legs. It seemed like it was like a human footprint, but they just happened to be dog prints.
I have to ask a really
a
dumb
canine print
question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this real? Like that? Like
mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so, like, that's not a dumb question. It's like, it is real that people said this, and it is real that someone reported this, and it is real that the director of the animal shelter claimed this. Whether or not these people were lying, we don't know. But all of the things I've said thus far are real people telling real stories that they allege happened to them.
This is already like, I did not know so much of this. Okay, please keep going. Please keep going.
Yeah. So Linda takes all of this information. She publishes the article. And like I said, the news had already started spreading. But once the story was officially published, it went crazy. It wasn't just a slow news week in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. It was a slow news week everywhere. So it started to gain traction and get picked up on the wire. And people were publishing it all over the place. It ended up in tabloids. And it circulated very quickly, I guess.
For her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once the story was out there, people started to come out of the woodwork. People who had been holding on to stories of the beast for decades started to contact Linda and say, hey, these kids, they're not full of shit. Like, I saw that thing too. Here's my story. So it kind of opened the door to people who felt like they were just going crazy, were able to be like, hey, I saw that, and like kind of have their story told. One of the most famous stories of the beast, which I'm sure you've heard, comes from a man named Mark Shackleman, and it happened way back in 1936. Mark worked at a night guard at the St. Coletta School in Jefferson, Wisconsin, and St. Coletta is a former convent, but it's now listed as a disability services organization for children, and it operated as a school at the time. I don't want to get too much into it, but I will be talking about the school in another episode someday, because this is kind of a spooky school. I don't know when we'll do this, but we'll definitely have to bring this back up at some time, because spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure this is where Rosemary Kennedy was sent after her lobotomy. That's like part of like the local lore.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's one of those, like, St. Coletta has its own spooky history. So I will say part of that kind of lends to people not believing Mark's story, because a lot of people thought it was just him trying to add to the weirdness that is this big creepy school. It is a beautiful building. It definitely looks haunted as fuck. So, we'll talk about the school later. But anyway, in this story, one night Mark was doing his rounds and just keeping an eye on the place as night watchmen do. Just outside the school, there is a cemetery. And as Mark was coming up to it, he saw what he believed to be a very large wolf digging into one of the burial mounds. And it wasn't until he got closer that he realized this animal wasn't like other wolves he had ever seen. It was much larger and seemed to have, I'm going to say, like, a lot more awareness than the average animal. It seemed to be cognizant of him in a way that he wouldn't expect an animal to be. It seemed like it was ready to, like, interact with him, Mm-hmm. He said that when he approached it, the wolf stopped digging and stood up on its hind legs and stared directly at him and was, like, making eye contact with him.
Dude. Right? Imagine that. Holy fuck.
Right? Yeah. And same deal. He made it very clear this wasn't like, same as Heather, like this wasn't like a dog balancing on its, like, you know how sometimes that's what bears
It's so
do, like when they're
cute,
trying to
yeah.
be big and they're like, look at me, I'm a big scary bear. Which, like, I know they are, but I'm also like, you're so cute.
You're
okay,
such a
you're
cute
like
little
fuzzy
teddy
wuzzy.
bear.
Okay, like sit back down. But also, you could kill me. So it wasn't like that. It stood up. It was like it was greeting him, but didn't want him there, you know? Like, I'm imagining, like, when someone walks into a bar and he's not welcome and the guys all, like, stand
and they'll
up
just,
and are
like, they'll stop
that's
talking
kinda
and stare. Yeah.
and are like, you know.
Whatever
we
men
keep doing
do.
this, like,
yeah.
as men do. Just, like.
Just shake their heads a little bit.
I'm scary. Me, big strong man. But yes, like that was like the vibe that he was kind of describing. He also noted that the closer he got to the animal, it smelled like rotting meat. But he couldn't see any. There wasn't any roadkill. There wasn't any prey or anything like that, or that he could see. To be fair, regardless of what the fuck was happening, Mark was terrified and absolutely frozen in fear. He didn't know what to do, so he just kind of like slowly backed away from it, never turned his back to it, which you should never do to a wild animal, just FYI. That's my wilderness advice for today. He just like slowly backed away and just kept on going. Eventually, this animal also kind of backed off and went back into the woods, and he didn't see it again the rest of the night. The next night, the beast showed up again, and he was in the same spot at the same grave, digging when Mark was making his rounds. And this time, when Mark approached it, he said the beast seemed very angry. Like, it seemed like he was like, okay, you're like fucking with me again. It seemed like there was a familiarity there. Like, he's like, oh, this fucking guy,
Oh,
you
like
know?
you recognized him. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when he saw Mark coming, he stood up again and he let out a low, almost like articulate growl. And I don't know how else to phrase that. I guess like what I mean by that is Mark would say that it sounded like he was saying a word. Like Spooky does that sometimes. Have I ever sent you those videos of Spooky where he'll be like, roar, roar, roar,
He does
like,
have an
or like
articulate,
huskies.
yeah. Yes,
like
okay,
huskies do that. The like how they mumble. So it was kind of like that, but a growl. Like it seemed very angry. And there are theories out there. The way that Mark described it, I don't remember what the word was, but people are like comparing it to something in some legend. I'm not going to say the whole story because the way it was described when I was reading it, it seemed like a very big stretch. It was like, you know, something is similar to something, which is similar to something, which is similar to something, which means this was probably a hellhound. You know,
we're just
like,
playing telephone at that point.
So people do speculate like it could have been a demon or a hellhound, but I don't. Research that if you want to, but based on what I was reading, it was, like you said, it was very like, okay, this is a huge stretch and like we're way far from the original story at this point. But it could be, you know, who am I? I don't know. I think part of that legend is it was at a specific grave, so some people are like, oh my god, was this person like, who was it? What grave was he at? Like, were they going to hell, or, you know, whatever. That is the legend around that particular story, I should say. I do not personally ascribe to that one, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
I am curious about that grave. Like, I wonder if they were freshly buried or something like that, because that would make sense if there's, I mean, not to be gross, if there's a rotting corpse under the ground,
yeah.
like it stinks, and so an animal would smell it.
Mm-hmm. So that could have been what he was smelling. And I don't know if that was a currently used cemetery or if it was an old cemetery. Like, these details aren't included in the story anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, you can't find those details. Those have been lost to legend and lore, you know. I do wonder if there is any record of whose grave it was, even not just so we can see like the dates of when they died, but I'm curious of who it was.
Yeah.
Or maybe it wasn't even a grave yet. Maybe it was like a mound that would become a grave or something, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, and he was just into, or the beast was into like the loose dirt. Like, I remember when I had dogs, right, and if there was ever like a pile of dirt for whatever reason in the backyard, they would go nuts over that shit.
Yeah, I get it.
I get it.
Nothing like a loose pile of dirt, man. You know? Dude, right?
I know what I'm getting you as a wedding gift, is a pile of dirt.
Anyway, okay. Mark would tell a few people about this, but keep in mind it's 1936. Like, that kind of shit you could end up in the nut house for that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, he was very careful as to who he shared this with. And even those he did share it with, no one took him seriously. No one believed him that he saw anything weird. So the story never gained any like real traction. Maybe locally it's like, oh, there's crazy Mark with the wolf or like whatever. But it never got like big until Linda's article was published. This was over 50 years later. Everyone was like, damn, weird. That kind of sounds like what happened to Mark. You know what I mean? And they were like, huh, maybe he did see something, you know? So that story started to kind of come out of the woodwork as well. So again, I've said this a couple times, but the longer the article was out, it like grew and grew and grew and grew. And more and more and more people started to come forward, and people throughout the state started to try to see if perhaps like strange dog-like things that they had seen were maybe the Beast of Bray Road. But one of the most interesting things that I really enjoy / ascribe to is many people speculate that the Beast could be just Elkhorn sightings of Dogman, another cryptid, which is most often seen in Michigan, northern Wisconsin, and parts of Ohio.
I haven't heard of Dogman.
You probably have. Well, also there's a children's book, I think, called Dogman, so not to be confused with that one. But yeah, it's kind of around the Great Lakes region, but then also there have been sightings in various southern states as well, so kind of like in the middle America type region. So people do wonder if it could be that. Naturally, as people started to wonder what this could be, this led to an influx of looky-loos throughout Elkhorn, specifically in and around Bray Road. Scott Bray, who is one of the family members who lived on a farm on Bray Road, which is a road named for his family. It was like that's like where his family farms were. So he lived on this road. He lived on a farm on this street, and he said he hated the stories once they started coming out because there would be people out like on this highway. Okay, it's not a highway, but like it feels that way because it's a long stretch of road. People can like go real fast or whatever. It's a country road. So there would be people out there, and they weren't like, I'm not like defending them, but they weren't intending to be rude or disruptive. They weren't like shitty teenagers trying to vandalize or anything, but they were being disruptive. They were like, there was like people out with flashlights around Halloween. It just became that place people would go to like see if they could catch a glimpse of the Beast. My dad and I, like, my dad has always had motorcycles, and I remember he's the one I learned this story from. He told me this probably like 10, 15 years ago. I had never heard anything about this. So we went on a motorcycle ride and drove specifically down Bray Road. And I could see, like, because I was on the back, and I could see his head was like, like he was looking for something to point out to me. So like to this day, people still do that. Like, you'll take a detour down Bray Road and see if you can see the Beast or whatever. But there was so much of that happening around when this news broke, particularly with young people. So he was very annoyed by it. Like, he was just like, fuck this sucks. Despite his frustration, he would eventually kind of cave because he was asked so many times, and say that he himself may have had his own sighting. He was interviewed for a 1992 article of Strange magazine, in which he said he was working outside on his farm when he noticed a weird-looking dog out in the cow pasture. And he said it looks like a coyote or like a German shepherd, but it wasn't either of those things. Like, he was, again, this is another person who's like very familiar. He'd seen many coyotes in his day. He knew that it wasn't this. It just had that kind of general shape and had scraggly black hair and a very broad chest. And he said he thought it looked muscular, but it was too far away. He could have been, this could have easily been like a trick of the eye, He said that it had noticed him and it was kind of sneaking around, and it slinked behind this rock pile to hide. And he didn't want it disturbing his land, so he grabbed a stick and went to chase it away. But by the time he got there, it had vanished. Like, he didn't know if it had snuck away or if it literally disappeared. He got behind the rock pile and it was gone. He's gone on record multiple times saying that he never fully believed that what he saw was the thing everyone else claimed to see. Like, he did not believe in, quote, the Beast of Bray Road, but he did admit, like, that particular experience was weird. So it's like, he could have just been throwing them a bone and like, all right, here's a story about a dog since you won't leave me alone, you know, or maybe he really did see something. That's another thing that people kind of like speculate and theorize about. Another woman, I'm just going to tell a few more sightings because this was all kind of happening at the same time. Another one that I thought was really interesting was this woman, I don't remember her name, but she came forward and said that there was a particular corner of her backyard that just gave her the heebie-jeebies. Like, she didn't like it at night. She didn't like the vibes were just off. She just was like, I don't, like, it doesn't feel safe. She doesn't like it. And that corner of the yard had an entrance into the woods. And one day she said she saw a wolf-like creature come up through that entrance to the woods, and it came all the way up to the window of her house.
Oh.
Yeah, dude, that's like, I mean, it's not one of my biggest fears. That's very likely never going to happen to me because of the area we're in. But the house I grew up in, I had a friend who had, like, as I was reading this story, I was imagining my friend's house because she had a walkout basement and her yard was not huge, but like moderately sized. And to the right was an entrance into the woods, and to the left was a cow pasture. And she would get coyotes all the time, and we could hear them anytime we were hanging out. And like, there were so many times where I would be like close to tears because I was so scared they were gonna like crash through the glass and like come and eat us. So like, that was very much a big fear of mine as a child.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, so scary. Anyway, so that like kind of happened to this woman, like a wolf or a coyote or some dog-like thing came up to the window and started like scratching at it and trying to like bite at it. And she said she was like freaked the hell out because she was like, this is not normal animal behavior. But she said that it seemed like the wolf was aware of her and like trying to get to her. And eventually it did go back into the woods when it realized it was not going to be able to break the window or anything. So it was just, these stories kept coming. There was a very big influx in stories that like this could just be a weird rabid wolf, or the way people described it could be something else, you know? And that one I think that one happened during the day. The rock pile and the last one happened during the day, I believe. The rock pile definitely did. Yeah.
I don't like. Well, okay, I wouldn't like if it happened at night, but I always think scary things must happen when it's dark outside.
I know, right? You're supposed to be safe in the daytime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I say that is because she had a much clearer view of this thing than the other stories. So as time went on, there were stories like that like held a little bit, I don't want to say a little more weight than the earlier stories, not to like discredit the early people, but you know, if you see something in the daytime, you can validate it a lot easier than if, you know, you're driving down a spooky country road in the rain. You know, that's objectively, there's a lot of vision obstructions in that situation, you know. So this was like, she was clear and certain. Also, I guess the sledding would have taken place in the daytime too. I didn't think
about that. I just, every time something scary happens, I picture it happening at night.
Me too. Yeah, but those ones all, so yeah, many of the stories coming out happened during the daytime. With all that said, despite all of these people finding relief in the fact that other people had similar experiences, Scott Bray was not the only one who was a big skeptic. Linda herself said from the beginning of this whole ordeal that she never intended to spread news about there being a werewolf in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. She said that the news in the article was never, quote, there's a werewolf. It was, quote, people claim there's a werewolf. You know, like, she was just sharing people's stories. She herself was a huge skeptic. She she didn't necessarily believe that there was a werewolf out there. She would, throughout her career, end up becoming a cryptozoologist. She admitted at the beginning of all of this, she didn't even know what the hell that word was. She didn't even know what that was. She didn't know anything about that. But because of this story, her career kind of grew in this space. And she would, throughout her career, publish many books and articles and, do a bunch of projects related to cryptids and haunted folklore in Wisconsin in general. I have a few of her books. I've given them as gifts to my father specifically, but she kind of became like the regional expert on weird shit, basically.
That's
like,
so cool.
She has a lot of like haunted Wisconsin, haunted, like that type of stuff, which I love that. I mean, you know me, I love a local haunted publication. You know what I mean? So she has a lot of those. She's like, her name is known in the community. So yeah, like her reputation as the expert on the Beast of Bray Road grew astronomically, and that's who she was for her entire career. One fun fact that I love, they did create a Beast of Bray Road movie, but before the one that exists got made, there was an early version that was optioned that was going to star Mick Fleetwood of Fleetwood Mac as the Beast.
What the fuck?
Isn't that so funny?
That's such a fun fact.
It's so fun. That never got made because they couldn't get the funding, but it was it got pretty far in production. Like they had him fitted for the mask and makeup and everything, and they had to shut it down because they couldn't, I think, like someone pulled out or something, they didn't get the budget or whatever, something like that. A lot of people started to accuse Linda of doing kind of like a money grab move, just with entering the cryptozoology space. But she maintained throughout her whole career that even though she didn't necessarily believe in the beast at first, like it was just because this was a world she didn't know. The more she dug in and the more she spoke to people. I don't know if she ever came out and specifically said, like, yes, I believe in all this, but she did believe in the people. She was always very clear to, say that she believed that the people she spoke to were telling the truth. She maintained relationships with a lot of these witnesses over the years, just as like sources and, stuff like that. And she said none of their stories ever changed even by a word. Like she said, they all seemed very, very genuine and very sincere, and just she believed them. And like she was kind of conflicted on whether or not she believed something was out there, but she believed they believed something was out there, and that's the story that she wanted to tell. After the story first broke, roughly 20 people reached out to Linda with alleged sightings, and there have been significantly more ever since. I kind of touched on this a little bit already. I feel like this picture has been painted, but Elkhorn and just like that region of Wisconsin is a pretty, by the book conservative area. So it's often thought that despite how many people have admitted to having a sighting, there's likely many, many, many more. But the people who've had sightings either don't want to come forward and say anything or don't believe what they saw. They're like the people who are like, oh, it's just like a mangy wolf or a rabid coyote or whatever. They're just like kind of writing it off as something else, even though it may not be that. Like, it could be something paranormal or demonic or something like that. Of course, with stories like this, there are far more skeptics than there are believers. So there's a lot of theories about what this could be. Most people, again, just think it's like a sick wolf or something. A lot of people do think it's Dogman. Some people believe that there's like a family of werewolves in the area, and like some of them just like accidentally get caught sometimes. Yeah, I kind of think that's so cute because I think the reasoning for that is like the young ones are bad at hiding. So it's like they're the ones who are seen like in the daytime or like, whatever.
Little werepups.
A little werepup, right. Because one of the things, I didn't mention it, but one of the things I found was everyone who has had a sighting described it very similarly. Dark brown or black hair. There was only one person that said there was a gray and black. Muscular, scraggly was used many times to describe them, but they all had varying heights. So I'm like, oh my God, what if the little ones were, I say little. Little is like the 5'8" or 9" ones. But like, what if those are the little puppies?
Yeah.
Yeah. Little werepups. Yeah.
No, I'm going to choose to believe that.
Yeah, me too. So one theory I found, keep in mind, this story broke on the Tales of the Satanic Panic. So there are many people who think that this could be a result of like a weird occult ritual gone wrong. Like, you know, half man, half wolf creation spawned by the devil type situation. Cool. Which I also find hilarious. I do wonder, like, I mean, that doesn't explain the sighting from 1936, but there was a big gap between, you know, there was that sighting, Mark Shackleman's sighting, and then all of the ones that were reported most recent all occurred in the 80s and 90s. So I don't know. So one thing I find, I do not ascribe to this belief, but I think it's hilarious. And like, I'm not writing off any of these theories. Some people think it could be the result of like a hidden government conspiracy experiment.
Yes.
So for once, I am not blaming the government in this story, but that is, you know, that's not a popular theory, but you know.
Who was president in the 90s? Was it Clinton?
Clinton
did it.
Bush, then Clinton.
Bush and Clinton did it. Those
bitches.
Those
Who was
motherfuckers.
President in 1936.
Notorious wolf haters. Them.
That's what I always say.
That's what I always say. Those motherfuckers
dirty
would
wolf
make
hater.
a werewolf if they could. You dirty wolf hater.
But yeah, these are again. That's a very small percentage of people believe that one, and the occult one. Most people believe it is either Dogman or just our own little southern Wisconsin werewolf/werewolf family. For funsies, I choose to believe one or both of those. I think it's one of those two. I think it's either Dogman or werewolves. I definitely believe there's a weird wolf beast out there because I fucking do. That's just, I just choose to. I love a cryptid and I love a werewolf. So this is like, if you could like wrap me up into a story, it would be this one. I love this story. So yeah, that's all I have. I will say one more thing. In the years since this happened, people do still go looking for this thing, and there have been a few stories since then. They don't really circulate the way they used to. I think the stories that everyone has heard are the Teenager on the Road and Mark Shackleman's stories are probably the ones you've heard most about. I just shared a small, I don't want to say small, but I just shared some of them. There are more out there. And they're pretty easy to find. So if anyone's interested in hearing about more sightings, we can link some things. I have a few resources I can share. One of my favorite things, part of the reason I ascribe to the Dogman theory in addition to the werewolf theory is I'll link this as well. I found a fun map of Dogman sightings. And like, if you use your imagination, there's a migration pattern in there, which I just love that vibe.
What?
Like a traveling werewolf or a traveling like dog cryptid.
I'm picturing him with like a little suitcase.
Me too. I'm picturing him with one of those like
the stick with the handkerchief
with
on
the
it.
thing.
Yes.
Just like, okay, now I'm going to Elkhorn. Yes, love that.
Oh my god.
So that's my theory, is a cute little traveling werewolf.
I love that
guy.
so much, because as you were telling the story, I was like, so I'm glad that you brought up the theory about it being a werewolf family, because for a lot of this episode I was like, oh my god, I hope he's not lonely. Like if it's just the one,
that's
like poor guy, everyone,
the beast.
Yeah, they call him a beast, and he just wants to be friends with people, maybe, and I don't know, just because he has claws doesn't mean he's mean. He's looking for a friend.
Maybe he wanted to go to the Halloween party. That's why he was like trying to get in the car. Like, hey, wait for me. I already got a costume.
Yeah.
She's just like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
Which, like, no shade, Doris.
Oh yeah, absolutely
if you're
no
still
shade.
Around. I just like, I would also do exactly as you did. But like,
same.
I don't know. He could have asked. He could have been like, hey, where are you going?
He was just trying to enjoy his succulent roadkill dinner, and people were making fun of him for it.
He didn't know he doesn't know our social norms, so he didn't know you have to be like invited to a party.
He didn't know.
So that's
not his
what
fault.
that was
it's
about.
Not his fault.
Yeah.
I believe in it, him, them. Because why not? Why the fuck not? Life is boring if you don't
Why
believe
not,
in things for
too?
no reason. So I believe
Yeah.
in it.
The older I get, the more I believe because there's not enough time. I'm running out of time. I gotta believe.
I gotta believe in the
The
whimsical
closer I get
werewolf.
to death, the more I ascribe to all the dumb theories.
My belief system is steadily becoming more and more, now what the fuck? You know?
Just
Why
absolutely
not?
unhinged. Which is so funny. Isn't that like, what is like that meme? Like, oh, you'll get more conservative the older you get. I'm like, what? Who said that? Who was the first person to say that dumbass shit? Because no. Oh my God. Absolutely not. You are out of your mind. That is not how it works. That's not how it works over here at Ice Cream You Scream. With every
Nope.
passing day, I believe in, like, I can't wait until like season 5 or whatever the fuck when we're just like, it's real. Like, I saw
We
it.
are the
I
Beast
saw
of
the
Bray
beast.
Road.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm going to be like,
I am keeping that in. I'm not editing that out.
no. I am toward the end of my bottled cocktail. So,
Yeah. I still have quite a bit of aged wine to go through.
I will say, before we wrap up, as a reminder, you do not need to send us stories that have to do with the topic that we are discussing that month. And much to our absolute joy, we had someone hit the link in our show notes and send us a couple of stories. So, before we hop out, I am going to read those to you now. Gina has not read these. I'm going to be reading them to her for the first time. Let me just hop right in.
My virgin ears are ready.
Excellent. So this is from Chloe. It says, okay, so, all caps, which like right off the bat, you
Love
know it's
it,
going to
yes.
be good. It says, both of these experiences happened in the same house. I used to house sit for my boss who lived in a house that was built in the 70s. I know, the 70s aren't exactly Victorian, but 50 years of energy. And it was filled with lots of old antiques and things like that. So, first experience. I was out on a horrible second date for New Year's Eve one year, and I didn't get to my boss's house until the wee hours of the morning. I want to say it was around 3 a.m. It had snowed while I was out, and so there was a fresh blanket of snow all around the house. When I went to let King, the dog, out, I noticed in the snow there were deep footsteps leading up to the back door, but no footsteps leading away, just one set of footsteps.
Oh, that's so
Isn't
scary.
that spooky? I know. I remember thinking the footsteps were kind of vague in size. Could have been a preteen with bigger feet, or it could have been a full-grown adult with small feet, just like very average. Not seeing the footsteps leading away and not remembering if the door had been locked or not, I was very nervous that someone was in the house. So what did I do? I grabbed a steak knife and I went and looked in all the nooks and crannies of the house to make sure no one was hiding and ready to murder me. Luckily, no one was, but the origin of the footsteps, still unknown.
Fuck
Then,
that.
Dude, right? Fast forward about 6 months later, one night I was house sitting again, and my boyfriend at the time and I were watching a movie in the front living room, which isn't something I'd normally do. She had a cozy family room / den that I'd normally hang out in, but for some reason I chose the front living room this time, which was a slightly more formal space with a few gorgeous antiques in it. The front window had these curtains that you had to pull shut individually. It was like 5 curtains total, and to cover the window, you had to spread each one. No automatic process, takes a moment to do, and you have to do it one by one with your hands, not like a stick thing. Anyway, after watching a movie, my boyfriend and I go upstairs, leave the curtains closed, and we head off to bed. The next morning, he gets up to leave for work before me, and when I get up, I realize the curtains in the front room are all open. I text him to ask if he had opened the curtains, and he said he hadn't. When I told him that they were somehow open, he said, quote, I thought I felt a strange presence in the house last night. Not like malevolent or anything, but definitely a presence. Then it says, wow, thanks, my guy. Very helpful.
Right?
Like, what? You just casually say that? Like,
If Tom
oh,
felt
yeah.
like there was a presence in our house and didn't tell me and then left me alone, I'd be so mad.
The moment I start feeling weird about anything, I'm immediately like, ghost. Like, I sound the alarm immediately. How do you not? How do you just casually, like, I
Well, I
don't know, you
guess
gotta warn people.
the operative word there is boyfriend at the time.
Boyfriend at the time.
Or
Yep.
operative phrase, I guess.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Based on this story alone. So it says, so obviously this freaks me out a little bit. I tell my boss about it, and she says that nothing showed up on the ADT, so no one came into the house. Cool, cool, cool. So I try to speak with the ghosts and just ask that they don't come out and spook me, but they're more than welcome to just hang as long as they let me chill too. Nothing happened after that, and eventually I stopped house sitting, but it was a really freaky experience. In terms of my theories, I don't know. Antiques can hold energy, so part of me is like, maybe that? But there sadly was a little girl who was murdered a few blocks down about a decade ago at the time, and my boss had 2 girls who were a few years younger than her, so part of me is like, maybe it was her coming to hang out with some kid friends. To end things on a lighter note, we have one more ghost story, not at the house. She says, I once was on a ghost tour of Chicago with my horrible ex, and when we got on the tour bus to leave the stop, I noticed a very generic white guy in a gray sweater get on the bus before me and walk back to the one bathroom on the bus. He was pretty average height, had close-cut brown hair, and a head that was kind of ducked low, and I don't know, for some reason, he gave me Eminem vibes, question mark. I don't know.
Okay.
Like, I get it. I can see it. Like,
yeah.
she said, so I had to pee, and I waited outside of the bathroom for him to exit, but he never did. Eventually, my boyfriend at the time asked me why I was waiting, and I checked if the door was locked. It wasn't. He flung it wide open, and no one was in there. I tried to explain that I had absolutely 100% see someone go into that bathroom, but everyone just thought I was nuts.
I wonder if there was a little trapdoor sneaky compartment in the bus.
He like flushed himself down the drain.
Yeah.
Dude, that's spooky because I wonder what tour they were on, because I wonder if it was one of those like big bus tours.
Yeah.
Like those big red ones or whatever.
Mhm.
I went on one tour that was not one of those bus or like big bus city tours. It was like at a specific location about us. It was like a privately owned something or other. And like those things can be very spooky. Like I would not be surprised if there was a ghost on that tour, like depending on what the tour was of. You know what I mean? Like
I like the idea of a bus ghost.
Dude, me too. Okay. Was it you I was talking to? It was either you or Phil or just myself. I don't remember. Those are the only people I really talk to on a regular basis. About whether or not planes can be haunted. I was thinking about that when I was on a plane recently. I was like,
for
I'm
sure,
getting
right?
weird vibes. Is there a ghost here?
Yeah.
Are there ghosts on planes? I don't know.
Why not?
There must be.
There's gotta be.
I don't know if like ghosts have like an altitude limit.
Nah, they're ghosts.
Like, can their energy transfer throughout, like vertically? I don't know.
I would imagine so. I think if there can be bus ghosts, there can be plane ghosts.
Okay.
And trains,
There
planes,
are car ghosts. There are
automobiles.
so many stories about like people having haunted cars.
Have you ever been to St. Louis?
Yes.
Have you been up the arch in those little egg things?
Yes.
I want to be an egg compartment ghost.
Oh my God, that would be horrifying.
Because you're like
Can you imagine
locked in there. You can't get out and it's
getting
so
into
small.
one of them, and they're so small. They're smaller than like a Ferris wheel thing.
They're tiny.
And all of a sudden you look over and there's Gina like ratting away.
Yes, that's what I want.
Yeah,
That
would be horrifying.
Man, I can't get over the
Yeah.
footsteps one. That is so fucking scary.
That one to me is the scariest because it could have been not a ghost. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's like the opening
scariest
scene
one
from the
because
first
of that.
Scream movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vibes. That's fucking scary.
I wonder if the dog was being weird.
Yeah, me too.
Chloe, if you're listening, let us know if the dog had anything to say.
And also, thank you for the stories very much. I'm going to be thinking about
That
that.
was spooky. Yeah, so if any of our other friends out there have any stories, feel free to send them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. I mean, this one was a little bit on theme because she was with a dog.
That is true.
But they don't have to be. They don't have to be on theme. We will take any story that you have for us.
We just love a
It doesn't
good.
even have to be spooky. Just let us know what you're up to.
Yeah, we just we like having information. We're kind of nosy. We do have a proclivity towards spookiness, but
Yes.
I don't know what did you have for lunch, guys? Tell us. Yeah.
Well, that's all I have for you.
Well, thank you so much. The next time I see you, you're gonna have a husband.
Oh my god, weird. Yeah, I know.
Oh my god, gross.
Yuck. I'm gonna be a wife.
Yeah.
So, which one of us is getting wifed up? Like, if I say, like, I'm getting
You,
wifed up,
for
does that mean I
sure.
am a wife or he has a wife? Like, is he getting wifed up because he has one, or am I getting wifed up because I am one?
I
know
might
what I
be
mean?
wrong. I think you're the one getting wifed up.
I think so too. But
Because that's
I
like a
don't
thing
know.
that dudes say, isn't it? Like, oh, you better wife her, bro, or whatever. I don't know how men speak.
Do they say that? Bros out there, do you say weird shit like that?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they do. Is that what they say? You got a wife?
Yeah.
But I thought they said you got to wife her.
You gotta wife her
so
up,
he's
bro.
getting wifed up. Yeah. So he's the one getting wifed up.
But you have to
right?
wife her up. Right? Because I wouldn't go to Tom and be like, you better wife up.
I mean,
Right?
yeah, you wouldn't, but for more reasons than just what we're doing.
I mean, it's
better wife up.
not my brand.
Like,
but
he's like, yeah. So
what
I'm
about
getting
husbanded
wifed
up?
See, that's what, like, yeah, we'll just, getting hitched. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for joining us.
Great. Well, till next time, little spoons. Keep it cool.
And keep it creepy.
And keep it married.